how am I able to tell them that, like, mom, dad, just can you just let go of these stuff?
Do the old
But it's like
claim. I want
no
this.
one wants it, I feel. Hey Zesties, welcome to the Gleeful Talkshow, where we share zesty stories to cultivate the happiness and hero within. Thank you for supporting the show thus far, and if you haven't already, please subscribe and rate the show wherever you listen to your podcast. It will definitely help a lot. We can also connect on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Just search Gleeful Talkshow. And if you want me to stay caffeinated, you can also buy me a cup of coffee or two. Just head down to the episode notes to find out how. I've also put up a Zestie survey on the episode notes so that I'll get to know you guys better and provide better content in the future. I'll choose one Zestie who have filled out the survey to give 1 month subscription of Blinkist. Make sure to key in your email address on the survey. Blinkist offers key insights from top non-fiction books in a made-for-mobile format. Learn anytime, anywhere. This is not sponsored, by the way, but I do have something to share before we dive in. I'm so happy to announce that this episode is recorded via riverside.fm.
Powered by Riverside FM.
It's by far the best remote podcast recording platform ever. I've had my fair share of system glitches and bad recordings in the past, but Riverside doesn't disappoint and it always delivers. The great news is that they have a new feature coming in called Media Board, which I'm using now, and works as a virtual sound and video board, allowing creators to insert pre-recorded content straight into the live recording session. Ideal for podcast intros, outros, jingles, theme music, and ad reads. Riverside keeps coming up with all these awesome features, so don't miss out. I do have a coupon code that you can use if you want to sign up. You'll get 25% discount on the first 3 months of subscription. Just click on the affiliate link below so that you'll know you've heard it first from me. I do earn a little bit of small commission when you use it. So the reason why I'm sharing it is because I truly love this platform and wanted to share it with you guys. So please don't forget to click on the link on the episode notes and use the coupon code MediaBoard25 upon checkout. Today, we explore why we accumulate so many objects in our homes that sometimes we don't need and how we can manage and let go of these things. Our guest is a professional home organizer who has been helping people for 5 years decluttering their homes to provide calmness and balance of the mind, spirit, and soul. She is originally from New Zealand and now living in Canada with her family. She loves to learn and find ways to make life simple and enjoy the moment. Please welcome Louise Hopkin. Hi, Louise. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Glee. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to talk about my favorite subject.
Thank you for being on the show as well. And you run Space Reclaimers currently. What inspired you to build it in the first place?
That's a really great question. And it's taken me a long time to kind of answer that. When I fell into it, I was looking for a business, not specifically or home organizing. And I was looking around. I was like, I knew I needed to do something for myself, be an entrepreneur. And I found home organizing and I'm like, is that really a thing? Like I hadn't really heard of it before. And so I looked into it more and I was like, that sounds great. And I decided to start my own business instead because I wanted to do things my way and I just had a little twist on it. But the funny thing was, like, I'm not a naturally organized person. And so for quite a while, I was like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I pulled to this? And it was really intriguing. And it finally came to me the more I was working with clients, right? They were attached to their stuff. And I could see that there was so many more layers to it. So once I got to those layers, I was like, this is what I'm drawn to, is helping people understand, the psychology part of it, the triggers, and helping them release. So that's when it really clicked and I really switched up and started creating my programs and coaching. And now that's my passion and I love it. It's really exciting. And I love seeing people release that weight. It's like a weight, right? And they can feel it being lifted from them.
That's interesting. I could relate to in a way that it's not naturally within you. Like for me, podcasting or talking is not actually natural for me because I'm an introvert. When you started looking at home organizing, was there some point in your life that when it just clicked, like when you started looking at it intently?
Yeah, for sure. So when I started doing it and I was working with friends and, getting to know the systems and kind of how it works. And that's when I was like, okay, this is what I like to do. And part of me is I really love to help people. And that's always something I've wanted to do as well. I didn't know exactly what capacity that would be. And then I found that this really worked for me because I'm very empathetic with people and understand and get people to open up. So that's when it really clicked. And I'm like, this covers everything that I really love about and that I've been looking for in a career for the last, I don't know how many years now. A long time.
You mentioned about attachment and like the psychology in the things that we acquire. Why do you think a lot of us have this emotional attachment to these things?
Well, things are really, they're symbols sometimes of a time in our life. So, if you go traveling and you buy all those souvenirs and you get those little knickknacks and you're like, oh, this, every time I'm going to see it, this is going to remind me of this memory and this place. And you just keep buying and buying them. And then when you get home, unfortunately, sometimes they just get packed away and it's like they're collecting dust and you're like, well, I still remember that trip that I had and that great time I had with friends and family. But when we touch things, that memory comes back it comes back so strong. And then it's like, oh, but if I get rid of that, then the memory's gone. So it's trying to make that connection that the memory's still in you. It's not in the stuff, which is really hard for a lot of us, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't really thought about that. Like when you told me now, I realized that, oh yeah, it is. It does. And do you think aside from that, is there something like culture related? Have you worked with other clients in Canada or somewhere else that they might have different leaning on things, on why they do it?
Yeah, for sure. There is different cultures that will do that, and because gift giving is a huge thing and it's a respectful thing, and we need to keep hold of these items. And I haven't come across it a whole lot, but I can see it's in some homes. Sometimes it's the culture of what they're being brought up in, right? Their home, the style of their home. It can be if they've come from a place or a country or a time where things were really hard to come by, then you tend to really treasure everything you have, and now you have access to so much stuff because we have online shopping. Things are really affordable now, right? You have, I won't mention any names, but like, the big websites that you can buy cheap things. So there can be that culture and that background that really leads us to holding on to items because if you've paid really good money for it and it's what if I need it?
Yeah,
that
the
type
what
of
if.
thinking. the what if it's
indeed.
huge. Oh yeah, it totally is. It's like, and there's good, because when it comes to the what if, I talk about rules and guidelines for that. If you have something and you're like, but what if I need it someday? A really good rule I say is the 20-20 rule. And I don't know if you've heard, the minimalists actually do this one. And so what it is, if it's under $20 and if you can don't have to drive more than 20 miles or Ks for it, then you can let it go easily because it's easily replaced. It's not a wasteful way of thinking. It's more like helping you release easier and quicker, if that makes sense. So having these little rules and guidelines, it really helps with that psychology part of it, right? When you're letting go. I'm
curious, like for example, I have something very sentimental value. Like I can't let go of it. Is there something that, oh, okay, it's fine that you don't let go of it? Is there some kind of like soft rule?
Yeah, for sure. There is, totally. If it's not taking up a lot of real estate in your home, if it's not causing you anxiety, and if you perhaps like the piece, sometimes we don't always necessarily like the piece when it's sentimental, but it still has that attachment to it, right? So what I like to say is let's have it's either a number game or a space game. So if you have some sentimental items and say you have one box full of them, right? So you could have a tote that has your sentimental items in there. That's fine, right? We're not talking about getting rid of everything that means, something to you. But what we're talking about is creating those boundaries. So when you have those boundaries, then it doesn't go over it. If it's a sentimental item, is it if it's a large piece, is it large?
Let's say large, yeah.
Large? Okay, cool. So if it's a large piece, we're making this up. So I'll like it on the fly. So if it's a piece of furniture, right, and you're looking at it and it's taking up real estate, then what I suggest is a couple of different things. You can take photos of it, which I know a lot of people say, but do you ever really go back to that photo and then actually try sell that piece or donate? If you don't like the piece. But another way you could do it is ask family members and say, is anybody else interested in this? So I've had some clients that will actually do an auction in their home. So this is kind of like maybe older clients and they're trying to rehome their stuff. So they'll have their family come in and do an auction, which is kind of fun because then everybody gets to pick the piece they like. Another way I talk about is repurposing it. So if you're okay with having it, like if it's a piece of furniture that can be chopped up, which sounds a bit drastic, but you can have it remade into something else, right? And then you still have that sentimental item. It could be made into a picture frame, like I'm thinking of a medal holder, like if you have kids and stuff and you can put your medals on there. There's quite a few different things you can repurpose it. So that's another way of doing it, or repaint it and put new handles on it. So there's a few things, right? Yeah.
Good that you mentioned, because I wouldn't have really thought about it. And you've mentioned also about like family matters. I'm curious to know how, like for me, I am a Filipino living in Australia, but even before in the Philippines, my parents really love collecting stuff because of the culture as well. And how am I able to tell them that, or maybe try to start a conversation with them on like, Mom, Dad, just can you just let go of these stuff? And how do I initiate these conversations?
Yeah, that's a really tricky one, and a lot of us struggle with it, right? Because we don't really like to think about what happens to Mom and Dad eventually. It happens to all of us, right?
Yeah.
But it's it does. That's one thing we can be sure of in life, I guess. So, and it's not a fun subject, and I totally get that. But what happens is a lot of the times we're left with our parents' stuff, and if you're saying your parents like to collect stuff because of their culture, and it can be just how our parents are as well, then you have to think about you're going to be the one that needs to not clean up the house, but, deal with their stuff. When you're dealing with mourning and other things, right? Are you going to have to go there and pack up their home, find a home for everything? Are you going to feel guilty getting rid of this stuff? That sounds a bit harsh, but you know what I mean? Dealing with it. So what I suggest is really start the conversation now. And that could be tough. And for sometimes they may change the subject. They may, say, I don't want to talk about that right now. But just keep, which, I get it, because they're like, that's not something I really want to think about. Some are open, some are not. But just keep being really gentle and really mindful, and don't come at them as a
let's get rid of this stuff. You
know what I'm trying to like come at it really aggressive, right? Just say, right, we're going to get rid of this. And they'll be like, whoa, no. So what I suggest is coming in gentle conversations like, Mom and Dad, you have some great stuff here. I really want to find a great home for them. I don't have room for them in my home. What can we do? And then you can actually start. It's a little bit harder. Are your parents still in the Philippines?
Yeah, they are still in the Philippines.
Yeah, right. So it's a little bit different, but you could start working together with them even over virtually. Let's find a home for things. Let's start asking the family and do it together as a project. And so then they can see their stuff going to a really great home and they feel good about it. And another one could be to donations that they really are passionate about. Go to donation centers so they know they're helping someone with their stuff. But really start the gentle conversation. Don't be aggressive about it, and start with words like, Mum and Dad, like I said, you have great stuff. I love it. I just don't have room for it. But if you have brothers and sisters as well, talk to them and see amongst yourselves what you want. Do the old
but it's like
claim. I want this.
No one wants it. I feel that. Yeah, I think it's very good that you mentioned that. To start with saying that these are your stuff are really great, because I think for us kids, we just bluntly say that, oh, it's not useful anymore. anymore. Like you say it's the bad things right away. So I guess that's why.
Yeah, and it's the emotions you got to watch out for, right? Because we all love our stuff. What we have, it's our stuff, and it's what we're attached to. It's what we're passionate about. And if someone comes at us and said, you know what, you got too much stuff, I don't want it, let's just get rid of it. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
So we get that. Think of it and being in their shoes, right?
Yeah.
It's a tough one, but start slowly.
Yeah. And one of the things that also you're passionate about, the decluttering part that provides calmness in our lives. So how does it integrate with this calm in our lives just by decluttering our homes?
With clutter, some of us really, we don't stop and think about the actual effects it has on us. So we kind of know it has some sort of effect, right? We walk past something and we're like, oh, wow, that kind of sends a message to the brain. I got to deal with that. And you walk past it 5 times before you do anything with it, maybe more than that. So then you have brain clutter when you have so much stuff. So what we need to do is create a system, like keep it regularly, actually maintain it with our habits and routines. And when you see you have too much stuff, there's a lot of triggers that cause us to have too much stuff. So going a little deeper, I know this is kind of deeper in the question, but I have the acronym, the top 6 reasons why we collect clutter, which is reason, and retail, therapy, emotions, assigned time, S for sentimental, O for overwhelm, and N can't say no. So what you need to do is really look into this and discover the triggers and why we're holding on to clutter, because clutter affects us in our health, our finances, and it robs us of our time, right? So you imagine when, we're not leaving our homes as much lately, but you know, when you're rushing out the door and you're trying to find your keys, you're trying to get the kids ready for school, and they've got backpacks and lunches, and you're just like, the stress level goes up so high. You leave the house and perhaps you're heading to work or you're going to your business, then you're really now have all this adrenaline rush and you're just feeling really, really stressed. Then you come home and the house is chaos. So what's the first thought? Your first thought is like, I gotta do all this. And then it just starts again, right? Whereas our home, I feel, and what I believe is that it should be our sanctuary. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's always going to be 100% perfect, because mine definitely is not. But we need to keep on top of it, so we're not feeling like we have fuzzy brain. I call it fuzzy brain. You know, when you can't focus and you're like, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And there's so much going on in our lives that when we can have calm in our lives, we allow for abundance, we allow for creativity. There's just so much that comes in, and you can actually focus and spend time with your family and really listen to them and really not be thinking about, I've got to do that pile of dishes over there, I've got to pick up all that stuff over there. So it really affects us in so many ways. And in our health, we sometimes make not so good health choices because we don't enjoy being in our home, right? Or we don't like cooking. So we don't make good meals because we're just not really feeling comfortable, or we do a lot of takeaway. It heightens our anxiety, can cause depression. I know I'm kind of bringing the conversation down, but you know, there's all these things that we need to think of that clutter really does have a hold of us. Really, a lot of scientists now are actually studying it, and it's becoming a real thing, I guess you call it, right? There's a lot of studies happening all over America about it now.
Mabuhay! My name is Christine and I am the host of Lagim, a Filipino true crime podcast. Every other Friday, I tell Filipino true crime stories that took place in the Philippines. I love doing deep dives into both infamous and lesser known cases, and I like to include as much detail as possible to give listeners as complete a picture of a crime as I can. Lagim has just concluded its first season and will launch season 2 on the 2nd of July. So make sure you listen to Lagim on your preferred podcasting platforms such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or on YouTube. For more information, follow us on Instagram at Lagim Podcast.
Thank you for going deeper into that question. And I have like a very funny article that I came across with, which is also related to a study, but like on the different spectrum. So it's an article from independent.co.uk. When I was like searching for anything about decluttering, it just came up, and then it said that intelligent people tend to be messy. So apparently this study in the University of Minnesota, that suggests the link between geniuses and their intelligence. So this is just a fun take. So what is your take on it?
I love that. I think that's really funny. And I know intelligent people will be like, wow, that's probably me.
Yeah, it's like probably
they're
me
so...
because I'm messy, like, and something like Einstein's table was also like messy. I don't know, like maybe it's just because it's Einstein, not because he's messy. That's why he's a genius or something.
It's really funny you said Einstein, because I've actually used a couple of his quotes and I can't remember off the top, but he talks about clutter, and probably because he's, their brain is like going constantly, so they have everything. But one really interesting thing is you can seem messy to other people, but you can know exactly where everything is, right? So everybody's different. So they might have piles of papers, and then you say, can you grab me that report? And you're like, yeah, sure, here it is. You know what I mean? So it's everybody's so different. So I really like that take on it, actually. But yeah, Einstein, he was actually well known for like his clutter, and he actually quoted about it quite a bit. So that was funny you said that.
It was, because it was so funny that people, when they see these types of articles in the internet, we tend to, I'm also like this one, I'm like this one, because it said, so, but it's a funny thing. But I guess, it's, as you said, it's everybody's different, and my messy is not other people's messy, as long as maybe people are hygienic or something.
Yeah, there's a difference between that. Hey, if you've ever seen like the hoarder shows and stuff like that, they're interesting. There's a different kind of perspective in there too. But yeah, being clean's kind of actually, and I'll admit myself, I don't like cleaning. I'm an organizer, but I don't like cleaning.
Me, I'm the opposite.
It's a necessity.
Actually, I'm very messy, but I like cleaning. Like, I'm so bacteria freak. I really like cleaning, but it's just messy. Like the messy, like the
so
arranging. The arranging part is difficult for me.
Right? And that's where it's really good, because I guess being the opposite, I'm like house cleaning, I could leave it. I'm like, I don't, but it's like, it's not my favorite thing. Getting rid of clutter and sorting it, love it. Where people kind of do think I'm a little weird that way, but that's okay.
Well, that's very interesting. And at least now, like, it's not always like the same as you mentioned, but very interesting.
Well, and now that you said that, we also talk about organizing to our processing modalities. So I don't want to get too, but you know how we have the 8 modalities. So processing to that as well.
8 modalities.
Yeah. So if you are creative, if you're kinesthetic, if you're an audio person, if you're visual. So that really plays a big part into it too, which I find really intriguing as well. And that's what I help people with too. And just a quick example, if you have your home office and say, if you're a visual person, like if you put things away, you forget about it. And that's actually a lot of us, right? It's like, I put this away, I make it look pretty, and then you're like, I've forgotten what I have. But if you have an office where you can organize it, you have open shelves, but make it look pretty, then you feel better because you can see it because you're visual. But then somebody else, that could drive them a little crazy because they're like, that's going to annoy me seeing all that stuff. I need it hidden away. So you see that, like, how it affects us that way too. So yeah, I just thought I'd throw them.
Wow. That's good. Thank you for mentioning that. What is your advice on the first step that we need to do to change the mindset of accumulating clutter or being disorganized?
Yeah, for sure. Great question. It can be a loaded question, but the first thing I always say is, let's really look at why we're holding on to clutter, where it comes from. The acronym I suggested, is it because when you're triggered emotionally, do you go shopping? Is it sentimental? You hold.
It's me.
Right? God, you busted. You're like, yeah, that's me. So, and then, so what we do is we switch that mindset. Okay, I feel triggered. I actually don't really need anything, but let's go for coffee with a friend, or let's find something else when you notice that trigger happening. But just to really be aware of that and get to the root cause of why you're collecting and can't let go. But just sort of on another way, how you can do it is commit to it and make it like an actual priority, which I know a lot of us don't. We kind of go, I'll do it later, and it's not important. But if you when you're cleaning, like you're doing your house cleaning, how good that feels. So now we need to change that projection to having less stuff and not being messy and saying, I want that feeling of, how good that feels when I put stuff away. But then it's also having a place for everything as well. And that makes it easier. But if we were to go back to just sort of say, how are you going to start to declutter? What I would suggest for people is get a spot in your home that you can kind of leave boxes. So grab some boxes that you can do the categories, donate, keep, sell, trash, and then have that set up and then go through the areas, like do them in small, tiny tasks is what I call them. I don't know if you've seen, like some say, pull everything out all at once, like pull your whole closet out all at once. And then that just gets overwhelming and you won't finish it.
Some TV shows, I think, I think I saw.
Yeah. I'm trying not to name it, but there's other.
Yeah, but it's okay. Yeah.
So and that's one way of doing it, which it's great and you get to see it. But who has 6 to 8 hours to go through their closet and put it back? Not me. I don't.
Yeah.
And I don't. And actually, I know I said I like decluttering, but I don't like it for 6 or 8 hours a day, right? That's So what I suggest is get boxes, totes, anything. Put them in an area of your home that's not going to cause any issues, but commit to it. Put it in your calendar and say by the end of the week or 2 weeks, I'm going to have my closet done. And just spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes every night going through your closet. And what you'll always find is actually, it's a really big knock-on effect. Go through the simple things first. So things that you know that you can get rid of quite easily, and then work your way up to the harder items. The items you're keeping because just in case I can fit into them again one day, just in case, right? Then you're kind of like, you're really ready to let go because you're making that decision. But that's kind of how to do it really quickly. And because people sometimes say start with the hard things first, but if you start with the hard things, you're not going to continue on, right? Because you don't feel good about so that would be my suggestion for people.
Oh, thank you so much for that advice. I remembered something that I'm looking at some Instagram, photos, and decluttering is like a thing now as well, especially in the Philippines. And most of the home organizers, they buy more stuff to organize their homes, like labeling and stuff. What is your take on it?
Yeah, I'm a little different from that. So it's a great question too, because when I talk about like the 3 top mistakes, the one of the top mistakes is thinking you need more organizing products, and you really don't, right? Maybe occasionally you might need a little bin or something to put things in. But when I help people, they have so much organizing stuff. They're like, but I don't know what to do with it and I don't know how to use it. And then what happens is when they declutter, they don't need it. And it's like, okay, I didn't need that to buy that new shelving or, so it's really interesting. So it's a good question, but we just think we're hiding it is what's happening. It's like, if I could just hide it, then it'll be fine. But then when it's behind those doors or in those bins, can you remember what's there? Do you need it? So it's really going into those questions and be more mindful of it, really, instead of just putting a Band-Aid on the problem. That's what I call it.
I'm glad that you have the same sentiment or something, or your same style, because actually I tried like just looking at Instagram. Oh, people are buying this very nice canister where I can put my like coffee, tea, and these things. Of course, they look very aesthetic.
Yes.
And then I tried it, but I think it just works differently for other people. It's not like, one style fits all, because I tried buying it to put the cereals and stuff. And then in the end, when I bought another couple of cereals or after, several groceries, I didn't put it there.
Oh, no. And that's a hard thing. You don't know until you try it, right? But we see so much social media and it's like, okay, but that's got to be, if they're doing it, then I'm doing it too, right? That's got to be the right way. So I think it's a really good take. And another thing is like, I really encourage not to have things on your countertops, maybe a couple of things, but I'm really big at not having that. And a couple of reasons is because it keeps the room decluttered, but it's also quick for cleaning. Like you don't want to have to be picking up things all the time. And it's, it's kind of, and like I told you, I don't like cleaning. So I'm like, if I can do it quick, then I'm happy. But that's good that you tried, but
it just didn't work out for me. But so that's why I guess that's where the home organizers come in, because they would need to understand the personality of the person, not like just me, like, oh, looking at Instagram is very aesthetic. I buy these canisters canisters, shelves, whatever, do labeling, but like without without really consulting.
Yeah, it totally right. And we all do. There's a lot of organizers, and like you said, it's becoming a really big thing now, and we all have different styles. And I'm not like a minimalist, but I'm like, let's just have less stuff. And like I said, I'm not a naturally organized person, but what helps me get organized is having less stuff. So that's why I want people to realize that, and because we've become kind of materialistic without actually realizing it, I think, because we have easy access to stuff. Like I said, it's so affordable. We can go online. It's really easy to get, that we've kind of forgotten that, when you end up, some people will have 10 potato peelers. They have all these different things in their kitchen. They have all these gadgets, right? And it's really funny because I'm like, well, I have a knife. I don't need to get all those little gadgets. I can cut things, I'm thinking of like a strawberry huller, if I never say that word right, or, an avocado slicer or an egg slicer. I'm like, but I can do that with a knife. Why do I need? So, it's great if people use them, but half the time they don't. So it's kind of changing that mindset, right? And it's like, I've had my pots and pans for like 16 years, and which sounds really, but they're still really good quality. And, I keep my things for a really long time. So I think buying good quality stuff too helps as well, right? So
yeah, totally agree with that. It's just changing the mindset, as you mentioned, because let's say, you see these cheap things on the internet, like, oh, let me just buy this. But I have a very good pan though, but it's too heavy for me. I forgot the name, Le Croix something. The French one.
Oh, okay.
Level something, but it's so hard to clean.
But you keep it though.
Anyway. Anyway, so before we wrap things up, I wanted to ask you some fun questions unrelated to decluttering.
Ooh, okay.
Aside from your profession, what are you most passionate about?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I'm passionate about camping. I love being outdoors. And living in Canada right now, I'm from New Zealand originally, and living in Canada, our months are like 3 months of the year we have summer. It's quite different. So I love being out in nature and just like having that campfire. And it was funny because growing up, I never used to like it. I always wanted to go stay in a hotel because we did it all the time. But now I'm like, me and my son and my husband, we love it. Just hearing the water. Yeah, that's what and we're going next weekend, so I'm super excited.
Oh, wow. Enjoy. Me, I'm on to the more of the city life, but I noticed like a lot of Australians and Kiwis, they prefer nature. I think maybe because of the very good natural resources here as well. So it's easier hike, the things that you can access.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And in Calgary, where I'm close to Banff, which is really famous mountains, and Lake Louise. It's appropriately named, right? It's called Lake Louise.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have easy access to it. So it's amazing. And it just clears the mind. Not bringing it back to clutter.
Yeah. Nice. And so if you had to delete all but 3 apps from your smartphone, which one would you keep?
Ooh. Am I allowed to keep Netflix? I would have to keep Netflix. That's my. That's an app, right? Yeah. I'm like, I am. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'm such an app. I'm like thinking, was that through the website? But I'd have to keep that one. I would have to keep Calm, which is a meditating app, because that really helps me. And I like this question. Now I have to look at my phone. You know what? I would get rid of my social media. I'm going to have to say that. Sorry, social media. But I would keep, you know what? And it's funny because I have Triple J, the Australian radio station. Yeah, so they're from Sydney, the Australian radio station. I actually have that app on my phone and I listen to that all the time. So yeah, because music, I love that music. So I would have those. That's a good question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Oh, that's nice. One last fun question. If you're going to sail around the world, what's the name of your boat?
Oh, that is awesome. I love that. I thought you were going to ask me what would be my destination. Now I'm like, I have to think about that. I'm not very creative with that. Can I go with something like freedom? That's what comes to my mind.
Okay, that's
we'll go with that. Okay, yeah, exactly. Okay.
Okay, great. What are your top tip for our Zesties when decluttering their homes?
Yeah, so top tips is make it a priority. Really set it as a necessity in your life. If you're wanting to create that space in your life and your home, I would put it in your calendar, because if you don't schedule it, it's like an appointment, right? Then you won't do it. So schedule it in like an appointment. And another really great tip is to change that mindset, to know that you can really live without stuff. And another really cool one I just was thinking of, I would pack, I don't know if you've heard of the minimalists, they did the packing party, but I would pack things away. Have you heard of that one? Or
No, I haven't. I heard about the minimalists, but not really in depth.
Yeah, so what they did was one of them actually packed up their whole house and they were still living there. And I'm not suggesting you do this, but what they did was, as he needed stuff, he pulled it out, and then he realized he didn't open half of those boxes. So sometimes you could do that, is just actually pack some things away that you're undecided about and see if you actually really do miss it. And I think that's a really good way to kind of change that mindset. It's like, well, I didn't use it in 6 months. I don't need it. So I think that's a really good tip in that way. And I was thinking of one more final tip. I think I did mention it before. Start with the easy things first. Think of it as layers and just saying, I'm going to go with the easy one, then I'm going to see how this feels, and then I'm going to go on to the next thing. But don't feel bad if you go back and forth to the item, because I've had clients that will actually take a week to declutter something. So don't push it. It's a process. And I think that's a really big thing, thinking of it as a process rather than it's done straight away if you're really struggling with things.
Thank you so much for your tips. They're quick to remember, and I think it would resonate to a lot of us, especially me. And then, so where can our Zesties find you?
Yeah, sure. So I'm on Instagram as The Space Reclaimers. I have my website, thespacereclaimers.ca. And then I have a Facebook group, and it's a private group. So it's Who Loves to Organize. So with that group, it's great because we do some workshops, we do some tips and strategies, and really help you learn how to let go of stuff and declutter and try and do it in 15 minutes a day, so it doesn't feel like a full-time job, right? So yeah, and I think that's probably the best places to find me, where I hang out.
Thank you so much, Louise, for this wonderful and enjoyable conversation. I've really learned a lot, and I'm sure our Zesties have resonated with your tips and our stories as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to speak with you, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Hey Zesties, hope you learned and had fun with today's episode. I'm curious to know which part of the house you'd like to declutter. Or if you're like me, who's struggling in that area, then which space do you least like to declutter? Let me know in the comments or feedback. Stay tuned for next week's episodes.